Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Midweek Meetings. We are on episode 11. I am KnockdownNico with the camera alongside Pr3ssix.
What's up?
Week 10 has officially concluded, and I really don't know how to kind of describe this week. It was kind of like wacky a little bit. So that's all. That's really all I can say. We'll get into some of the games. We'll recap a few of the games, and we'll get into some key headlines, some big headlines at that for today as well. And then we'll do our predictions and finish off with some fantasy football. We're going to recap our first game, potential game of the year, and probably the Thursday night football game of the year. The Ja'Marr Chase legacy game, but the Bengals still lost.
Wow, that was a great game to watch. Probably the best Thursday night game we've had in like 5+ years, so that was fun to watch. And I'm glad I had Ja'Marr Chase on my fantasy team. That's all I'm gonna say in one of my leagues. So definitely a plus on that side. I think it goes to show just how bad the Bengals defense truly is, and I think it also shows that maybe the Ravens are a little less of a superpower than we originally thought. Because the Bengals, I mean, they're good, but they're not the best. They're not at this point. They might not even make the playoffs. So if you're looking at this from just a perspective point, like the Ravens in 2 games against the Bengals had very close games that came down to the wire. And maybe the Ravens aren't that Super Bowl powerhouse that we once expected. But yeah, overall, my biggest takeaway is that these two defenses need some work. Both defenses giving up that many points, giving Ja'Marr Chase 3 touchdowns, definitely needs some work on the Ravens side. But from the viewing perspective, it was a great game.
It was a great game to watch. The Ravens defense is not as good as we think or people think in general. I mean, they put up, or Cincinnati essentially, they put up 38 points against them. The Buccaneers put up 31 points against them. Granted, they've had some games where they've only given up, a handful of points, but I think this defense for the Ravens, it's worse than people think for how good they are on paper. But I think it also attests to the fact that they can keep up with the scoring and not have it even be so Derrick Henry focused. I mean, he only had 68 yards that game. So, the fact that they can keep up with any offense in the NFL is good for the Ravens. But the question is just going to be, when we get to the playoffs or when we get to some of these big games, especially against Pittsburgh, they play twice before the regular season ends. Can the Ravens defense step up and make plays when it needs to and not, have these super high scoring games? I feel like the Bengals should have won this game. Obviously, they went for 2, didn't make it. They didn't throw the 2-point conversion to Ja'Marr, so that's, a little questionable. I feel like they should have, being that, he's arguably their best player. Or if you don't throw to him, don't throw it to like your third string tight end or whoever it was. I'm not sure what where he is in the depth chart for tight end, but you got to throw it to one of your main receivers, not like a backup in that situation. But it would have been a genius play if it converted, obviously, and it didn't, so it wasn't a genius play. But the rest of these Thursday night football games are going to be bad. I wouldn't say bad, but they're like, nothing's going to compare to this one because this was a very good game all around. Up next game, This is kind of a snooze fest. I'm not gonna lie. Nobody really watched this one until the end of it. But the Panthers win in overtime. Yeah, what do you think of this game?
I think it's good for the Panthers as an organization. Back-to-back wins, the first time that has happened for in a long time for the Panthers. Even though I think the Giants really beat themselves in this game, it's still a big confidence boost for Bryce Young. He actually played pretty decently, even though he was going against the Giants. But yeah, my biggest takeaway is Bryce Young looked the best I think we've seen him so far in his NFL career in that game against New York. Just based off the reads he was making, he was smart with the ball for the most part. Just overall pretty clean quarterback play. So pretty impressive from him. The Giants, on the other hand, you know, Tyron Tracy, very unfortunate fumble there in overtime. I mean, they had the chance to win that game, and they just could not convert. So I think Giants, I think they should be tanking for first round pick, preferably a top 2 to 3 draft pick. And I think we're gonna see some change in the Giants organization over the offseason. They found studs in Tyron Tracy and Malik Neighbors, the rookies in this class. So I think if they can secure those 2 players, keep them on the team, make a change at QB, maybe coaching changes. Although I think Dabble gets a lot of the hate when it's not necessarily on him. I think it's more on Daniel Jones. But yeah, looking forward for the Giants. I want to see them make some changes in their locker room, and yeah, just scratch the rest of the season for the Giants, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't necessarily put this game on Tyrone Tracy's fumble because Daniel Jones, this game they would have easily won, or not easily, but they would have won this game if he did not throw 2 red zone interceptions. At a minimum, that's probably 6 points, and they would have won with 6 points. So, I really don't put that fumble too much on Tyrone Tracy, although that did lead to the game-winning field goal. I feel like this is more on Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones just has this cycle. I almost tweeted this. He plays bad, then he'll, either rush for a touchdown or like short yardage touchdown he'll rush for, or he'll pass, maybe a 15 to 20 yard passing touchdown. And then he'll suck. And then when we get to the fourth quarter, he'll play enough or good enough to where he gets his stats to an okay stat line to where it's just good enough for him to start next week. Because, before that fourth quarter or even that, the majority of that game, he was, going to be nowhere near 190 passing yards. I think most of that passing yardage was from, the middle of the third quarter on back, or even in the fourth quarter. So, there's been some rumors I've seen that, Daniel Jones might be getting benched, although I highly doubt that because that rumor gets put to sleep pretty much every week by, Dable. But, for the Panthers, this is a good win for them. Good seeing Bryce Young happy on the sideline. I think that benching did help him. I do think, though, he needs to throw the ball more downfield. He needs to essentially throw for more yards as well. He only had 126 yards passing on 15 attempts. So I feel like he needs to, throw the ball down more field. That may help if he has better targets as well. But I feel like Bryce Young, to start getting that next step, he needs to start throwing the ball downfield, averaging more yards per pass and passing for more yards. Chuba Hubbard had a big game in this game as well, over 150 yards. And, the Panthers, they squeaked this one out. The Giants, I I think it's more Daniel Jones than Dable. We'll see how that goes, though. It's kind of like the Jets situation. Was it Salah's fault actually, and they're still not doing good? Or is it, the quarterback, in this case for the Giants, or is it something, above both of them? So there's just going to be a waiting time. The Giants obviously aren't going to make the playoffs. They might as well start, trying to get a first-round pick. They should draft a quarterback, but who knows what they'll do. All right, our next game is the Chiefs move to 9-0 on a game-winning blocked field goal.
Bro, you can't make it up any differently for the Chiefs, man. I mean, week in, week out, they somehow find a way to win games, even if it's a blocked field goal. Coming into this game, I think I mentioned that I thought it'd be possible for Denver to split the series with Kansas City, and it almost came into fruition yesterday, but fortunately, it did not. I might be the biggest Chiefs hater on the planet right now. My whole TikTok feed is like different team hype videos who are going up against the Chiefs in the next couple weeks. Um, so yeah, Chiefs are gonna keep winning. Somehow, some way, they're gonna keep doing it. And my biggest thing here is that the Broncos defense is very good and very underrated. They've looked good so far this season, and I think they have a real chance of carrying this team into a wild card spot. They got some of their tougher matchups out of the way, the Broncos did, so they have a okay schedule. It's not too easy, but it's not terrible to get into the playoff picture here. So, Broncos, they have a shot. And Chiefs, I think, I don't think we'll see them lose for another 365 days or something like that. So, yeah.
I mean, I think I said last week that Broncos could be one of the teams that could beat the Chiefs. I just did say it wasn't going to be this week, though. I was almost proven wrong. But, I mean, this was a defensive game. This is a very defensive game. The Chiefs I want to say they had 3 field goals, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, this was like a gritty win. Now, I did see something, everyone's saying like they're so lucky or something. I did see something today that it's not the long snapper. It's someone who plays on the offensive line. I'll have to try to find it because I don't remember the guy's name. But he's been having problems this entire year, with not saying like every time it's been a blocked kick, but he's been struggling at this protection, in the field goal, kicking. And the Chiefs targeted him at that, on that specific field goal attempt. And lo and behold, they get a blocked kick and they win the game. So, good for the Chiefs, you could say. But, they studied their opponent and they attacked the weakness and it ended up working out. So we'll have to see if teams do this, with the Broncos continue to do this, or what Denver tries to do to counteract this. But, I mean, yeah, this was just a very gritty game. I still think there's a chance the Chiefs lose a game this season, but I don't know. It's going to be tough. Also, I didn't watch this game too much, but I'm really curious on this running back situation for Denver. I've seen this Audric Esteem, was their lead rusher, lead carrier, rookie. So I'm not sure if he's starting this week or, it's going to be someone else. According to the depth chart, he's first in the depth chart at running back now. So we're going to see, from a fantasy standpoint, we're going to have to see, if he ends up being this number 1 guy for Denver in the running game now, or, how it goes for the rest of this year for Denver. But close game. People are going to say the Chiefs lucked out on this game. I don't think they did necessarily from the blocked field goal. they just studied their opponent and made the play when it counted. All right, our last game we're going to go over, Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions, but the Lions still win.
Man, this game killed me as a Packers fan. The Packers needed this Lions team to lose, to have a shot at the division title, which is slowly slipping away. But man, the fact that the Lions won that game is crazy. The Texans put up like I believe it was 0 points in the whole second half of that game. So just a great comeback win for the Lions. It's kind of like that whole Dan Campbell mentality at work there in that game. And I think it raises more question marks for me about the Texans than it is about the Lions. I think the Lions are a gritty team. They're kind of like the Chiefs in the sense that they'll always find a way to win. They're a very well-rounded team, a lot of depth on that team, and they're probably a Super Bowl favorite right now. But the Texans, they just fell flat in the second half of that game. I'm not sure what happened to them. Maybe the addition of Nico Collins, hopefully back this week, will help them out a little bit. But yeah, that's a tough loss for the Texans. They would have had 7-3 record, I believe, with a big lead in their division. Now they're only like, I mean, their division's still pretty bad, but lead's not as big. Um, that would have been a great game for the Texans to prove themselves, and they kind of fell short.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of insane that, the quarterback throws 5 interceptions, and first off, the quarterback throws 5 interceptions. Detroit still had over 300 yards of offense, and the Texans still lost this game, which is kind of insane to believe that, especially because they didn't lose it by much. They lost it by 3 points. They were completely shut out in the second half. I do think getting Nico Collins back is going to help this team out immensely. So, have to see how that happens. But I think I said this last week when we were predicting this game. The run game is going to be very tough. Joe Mixon had 25 carries for 46 yards, under 2 yards a carry. And I said that was going to be an issue if they couldn't get the run game going. They were going to struggle. They didn't struggle as much as I thought they were going to, but it was clearly evident in the second half when they didn't score any points, and the Lions came back from that game as well. Like, I don't think there's, too many people in general that can say, I threw 5 interceptions and I came back and won. So that was kind of insane on Jared Goff's part, but the Lions just didn't give up. They're definitely the clear favorites for the NFC. The Texans, I think this is 2 straight losses if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to need to get a bounce back win against, a depleted Cowboys team. And then they have, they got a big schedule coming up, the Texans. They got 2 games against Tennessee. They play Baltimore, Kansas City, and Miami. So this is going to be a very tough end of the season for the Texans, and they're going to need it. Even though their division, they're not as great, they're going to need to win as many of these games against inferior opponents to make sure they get to the playoffs.
I think I saw a stat. Sorry, I think I saw a stat on the broadcast of that game. I think it was something like a team hasn't thrown for 5 interceptions and won a game since like 1970 or something. So, I mean, that's just crazy to think about. That's like the last time the Lions were actually good. So, I mean, I guess all things coming around and go around. So, 1970, 54 years ago, last time that ever happened. So, yeah, it's just like crazy thing that the Lions won that game.
Yeah, that is a crazy stat if that is true, and we'll see. The Lions will probably bounce back, this week. Don't remember who they play. I think they play. Oh, they play Jacksonville. So yeah, they're gonna have a pretty easy game. They should coming up. So that was a clutch win for them. Honestly, there's a chance they may not lose another game this season. Detroit. We'll have to wait and see. But I mean, very interesting game, that Sunday Night Football game. Anyways, now those are our recap for the games from last week. We are going to move on to some headlines. Starting off with the first one, Dak Prescott is officially out for the year. I think he already had the surgery on his hamstring, but he's out for the year. Obviously, they got dismantled by the Eagles last week, so rough spot to be a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Yeah. I think with Dak out for the year, I think the Cowboys season is also out for the year. Maybe next year will be the year for the Cowboys. Highly doubt it, as long as Jerry Jones isn't putting the curtains up in AT&T Stadium. But we'll see what happens. Cowboys are in a weird spot. They're probably not going to be at the very bottom of the league, so they're not going to have that top 5 pick probably. But they're also not going to have a great record. So they're kind of in that mid spot, probably finishing with around 6 or 7 wins in my opinion. So we'll see what they decide to do down the stretch. If they keep Cooper Rush as the starting quarterback, or we saw a little bit of Trey Lance last week. See if they give him a shot, just for fun, I guess. You never know. But yeah, Dallas needs to just focus on next season. Next season, they'll have Dak healthy. They get Deron Bland back, which has been a big missing piece in the secondary. And I think this injury just kind of sums up the whole year for the Cowboys. Just a year of mess. I think it all started with the CD contract dispute and stuff. Kind of set a bad tone for the whole season, in my opinion. And I think it has carried over quite clearly.
Yeah, I think this is the towel for the Cowboys season. It's definitely over after Prescott being out for the rest of the year. I mean, we'll have to see how many wins they get. They do play the Giants, and they do play the Panthers, but they also play the Commanders twice, the Eagles again, and the Bengals. So, they may win another game or two. So they'll kind of be, I think, just outside that top 10 pick range, which I think they need to draft a running back. Like, that's their biggest issue. They didn't go out and sign a running back. They passed on Derrick Henry. This AT&T Stadium with its problems. The sun. And then you got, the press conference, they have like a little sun visor. So the sun isn't in Mike McCarthy's eyes, but they can't do that in the game. The Cowboys are just a mess. They're going to need to just fully regroup, and it's going to be up to Jerry Jones, whether they like it or not. It's going to be up to Jerry Jones to fix this team, in a sense. To who do they sign in the offseason? What do they need? I think they definitely need a running back. They definitely need a second wide receiver as well. Where do they target that in free agency? Do they go and get it in the draft? The defense is looking bad as well. They're 31st in rush yards a game, and they're 31st in points against. So this is just, it's over it's officially over, if it wasn't already, for Cowboys fans and their season. Also, apparently Cooper Rush is starting this week. So we'll have to see how that goes this week as well. Who knows? Maybe Trey Lance plays a couple games as well. It's just gonna be a wait and see type of thing for them. Probably the biggest news. This came out this morning. The Bears fire Shane Waldron.
Yeah. I mean, putting up 3 points against the Patriots. It's kind of a death wish, in my opinion, if you're an offensive coordinator. Um, Bears have not scored a touchdown and since that game against the Commanders where they went down the field, scored a touchdown, and the Commanders won on a Hail Mary. So that's the last time they scored a touchdown. So they've gone 2 straight games without scoring a touchdown. Their offense has been stale. They haven't found a way to get Caleb Williams involved. He got sacked. I think he got sacked 9 times in that game against the Patriots. So, and I think I saw a stat, he was also sacked 18 times in the last 3 weeks. I mean, that's just crazy. They got to find ways to get Caleb Williams, get the ball out quicker, or figure out the protection for him because the offense is just not clicking in Chicago. I'm not sure who will have the play calling roles in Chicago,
It's the
but we'll,
passing coach.
okay. So I'm not sure what he's gonna have up his sleeve, but we'll see what happens in Chicago. They're against Green Bay this week. You know, this will be a good test for them. If they can compete with Green Bay, maybe they'll be able to salvage their season. If not, I think it's gonna be a rough sledding up ahead for the Bears. We pointed this out earlier in the season. They have a really tough schedule ahead of them, so it'll be interesting to see if they're able to compete at all through these last couple weeks of the season.
I mean, good for Chicago for firing this guy. He sucked in Seattle. Clearly, he sucked with the Bears. I think this is the first time they fired an offensive coordinator mid-season since like the 1970s or something ridiculous like that. It's been a long time, but the offensive line is a big hole for Chicago, but I don't think Caleb Williams is helping them out either. This team is 30th in passing yards. Obviously, the Panthers are probably worse, and then I'm not sure what the other team is exactly. But, yeah, I mean, this team, the offense hasn't been good. I saw another stat today that their rookie punter, Troy Taylor, who Caleb Williams said he was not going to be punting a lot, has more punt yards this season than Caleb Williams does all-purpose yards. So
yeah, I saw that.
if that's just saying something right there. I also did see another thing that the veterans of the team, like the veterans on that Bears team, were looking and wanting potentially Caleb Williams to get benched before Shane Waldron got fired. So they're not happy. The players on the team with Caleb Williams. I guarantee you, I'd put so much money on it that DJ Moore is not happy with Caleb Williams as well. I don't think Shane Waldron helped him out either with, the play calling, and what type of routes he has. But to put this into perspective, DJ Moore is second in yards on this team behind Rome Odunze, and he has 12 more receptions and 16 more targets than Rome Odunze. So, I mean, yeah, I think part of it's the offensive line, part of it's the quarterback, and part of it is the offensive coordinator. Now, obviously, he's got a very hard schedule. None of these games are going to be easy. The rest of their schedule: the Packers twice, the Lions twice, the Vikings twice, Seattle, and at San Francisco. It's going to be a tough sledding for this team, but we'll get to see how good Caleb Williams is essentially under this new quarterback system or, under these new play calls, if he is part of the issue or if it's truly fully the offensive line. Because I think it was a little mixture between all three, including Shane Waldron. You kicked one out, essentially, so now you're down to 2, and it's just going to be a wait and see, although I'm kind of been on the Caleb Williams bus since the beginning of the season, and I'm still going to ride that train. All right, our next one is the Seattle Seahawks have cut their leading tackler, linebacker, Tyrell Dodson.
Yeah, I've never heard of Tyrell Dodson until I saw this, so I'm probably not going to be very helpful in this, but I'm assuming probably personnel issues, if he's the leading tackler, must be some internal conflict in the locker room or something. Maybe you want to get paid or something, I don't know. But yeah, Seattle's kind of mid, so maybe I don't know, we'll see how this affects them. Uh yeah, I don't have much to say about this.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird move, I think, but they're giving this rookie Tyrese Knight, Tyrese Knight out of UTEP some playing time now. We'll see how good he is. And then they're giving the calling to Ernest Jones, who they got from I forgot who they traded him from. But so they swapped Jerome Baker out with that. They essentially got rid of the two linebackers they signed this offseason. I don't think it was anything super internal issues with Seattle. I just think, the run defense hasn't been good. The defense hasn't been good this season as well, at times. And look, they went over stuff at the bye week, and Mike McDonald essentially said this wasn't working out. So, they released him. He was the leading tackler. I mean, you could say, what about being the leading tackler? But, they're not losing too much on him. If another team picks him off, Seattle they won't be responsible for a $1 million that he's still owed. He was only owed $2.25 million in his contract, and I think it was a free agent at the end of this year anyway. So, not the biggest thing, but they're probably going to have to look in the draft or, in free agency for a linebacker, because you essentially have a rookie and then a guy who came over in a trade who is good, but obviously he hasn't been, playing with this team for too long. So we'll just have to see how it goes, how it improves the run defense, how it improves the defense in general as well. So yeah, that's my 2 cents in it. He came from Buffalo beforehand, so that's, you were wondering. Another note too for Seattle, they signed Josh Jobe to the practice squad in replace of Dodson. They put another player on injured reserve, and they also claimed Brandon Peely off of waivers from the Miami Dolphins to hopefully bolster that run defense. So we'll see how these changes go. They're going to need some big changes. They're still very well in this NFC West race, but, this is a very tight race in that division. So they're going to need everything they can get in order to, win that division or even get a wild card spot. Our final headline is San Francisco 49ers have extended cornerback, I forgot his first name, Lenore. They extended him for 5 years. Diamador Lenore. I had to make sure I got that right. They extended him for 5 years, $92 million. I think this is a good extension for the Niners.
Yeah, I agree. Lenore has been a solid player for them the last couple of years. He's a dog. I mean, he can lock up anyone in the league, in my opinion. One of the more underrated cornerbacks in the league. He gets overlooked by all the other studs on defense for the 49ers. So definitely a good signing for the 49ers. They locked up that corner spot for a few years down the road, and they're definitely looking to keep that solid defense up.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very good move for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I'm going to be very curious to see how this affects Brock Purdy potentially getting an extension. How, George Kittle, when he gets an extension, or Debo, if he gets an extension, how it's going to affect that. But this is a very good, it's a very good signing or an extension for the Niners. He's been very good on defense, especially with locking down wide receiver number ones. And, he just more than that, he tackles, he can force turnovers, fumbles, interceptions, and he's very good in man coverage. So, this is good for the Niners. It's probably not good for, the people playing the Niners. So I think this is good. I think this just is a question, though, of how is the rest of, how are they going to use what money they have left for extensions on some other key players? I think that's going to be the big question. But, they proved that they had a big priority for securing their defense, and that's what they did. They went out and extended, one of their best players on defense. Those are our headlines for this week, our main headlines at least. We are going to now move on to our predictions for week number 11 as I pull them up. I think I went 9-5 this week, if I had to guess or not guess. I think that's what I went this week.
Let's see. I went 11-3, so a pretty solid week for me.
I was 9-5. Not as good as my college pick'ems, but that's another story. Moving on, though, we have week 11 predictions. Our first game, Thursday Night Football, we have Washington at Philadelphia.
Oh, this will be a good matchup, but I'm gonna have to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. From watching the Commanders against Pittsburgh, they're definitely competitive. But I think at the end of the day, this is a young team who still has a lot of improvement to do, and the Eagles have looked pretty good as of late, in my opinion. And this is a divisional series this game is in Philly as well, so this will be a tough matchup for Jaden Daniels. If this game is in Washington, it might look a little different, but I think this game definitely favors Philly. Their offense is looking pretty good. Their defense was pretty good. 4 fumble recoveries against who they play last week?
Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. 4 fumble recoveries, no matter who it's against, so it's pretty good pressure. So yeah, I like the Eagles this week.
I'm taking the Commanders. I mean, they played solid against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh, they have one of the best defenses in the league. Jane Daniels, he didn't throw for a whole lot of yards, only 200, but he didn't throw any interceptions. I'm pretty sure he didn't have any fumbles as well. So, they lost this game by 1 point essentially, which was, they just kicked some field goals, which was their main struggle. They were kicking some field goals instead of converting some into touchdowns. But, I don't think this Eagles defense is as good as Pittsburgh. And the Eagles, while they are coming on a 5-game win streak, you could say the only competitive team that they really played in that 5 games has been, or the best team they played in that 5 games has been Cincinnati. They played Cleveland, the New York Giants, and Jacksonville, which they almost lost to, granted. And then, Dallas Cowboys with a backup quarterback. So I feel like this defense, we kind of see it in Philly from time to time. They do good, but I think I wouldn't say overrated, but I think their defense is a little overrated just based on the teams that they have played. And this Commanders offense, is clicking. It's been good. They've been scoring some. I don't think this defense, like I said, for Philly is as good as Pittsburgh's was. And I think Jane Daniels, this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Jane Daniels, though, is going to get the final laugh in this. So it's going to be a good game, though. That is all I'm going to say. Also, this game is going to come down to Jalen Hurts and how many turnovers he has this game as well. I think this Commanders defense I've been sleeping on a little bit, so I think they can make a play or two, force a couple turnovers on Jalen Hurts and get a win. Up next, we have Green Bay at Chicago.
All right, look. The obvious answer is Green Bay. I gotta go with Green Bay Packers. Might be in Chicago. It doesn't matter. Look, the Bears are without an offensive coordinator. Like we said, they got the pass coordinator or something calling the plays for them on Sunday. The Bears have not beaten the Packers since December of 2018. So it's been almost 6 years since the Bears last beat the Packers. I think that trend is going to continue. I like the Packers here. They're coming off the bye week. Jordan Love's gonna be the healthiest we've seen him since week 1 of the year. So that'll be exciting. A lot of big key players on defense who have been injured, like Jair Alexander, is coming back. The secondary is gonna be stronger and healthier this week, and I think this should be an easy win for the Green Bay Packers.
I'm taking the Packers. The game they played last year against Chicago in Chicago, Jordan Love had 3 touchdowns, 245 yards passing. Even in the game where Green Bay, they only won by 8 points. That was at Green Bay. Jordan Love still had over 300 yards. So I think Jordan Love is going to have a great game against Green Bay. It seems like he has, at least from last year. I think he's going to have a good game this week as well. The Bears, dude, their offensive line isn't good. Caleb Williams hasn't been good. This is going to be a struggle of a game until, Caleb Williams is probably going to be under 100 yards till the fourth quarter. And then you're going to see him all of a sudden have 200 yards by the end of this game. But that's because, the defense is going to play a little lackadaisical and stuff. So, there could be a lot of sacks this game. There could be some turnovers. You have Jair Alexander coming back, like you said. I don't think it matters who he plays. If he shadows DJ Moore is probably getting like no yards. DJ Moore struggled against the Bears last year. If he does Rome Odunze, Rome Odunze is probably not getting a lot of yards. It doesn't matter who he guards, Jair Alexander. It's not going to be a good day for them. They're going to have to rely on DeAndre Swift, who, I don't think DeAndre Swift is, good enough to carry a team. And then, they have to rely on that defense, which I'm not going to lie, the defense is only as good as the offense, in a sense that if this, defense is on the field for so long and this offense just keeps getting 3 and outs and stuff or 4-play punts, it's not, that defense is going to falter. The defense is going to falter. So I'm taking Green Bay. Up next, we have Jacksonville at Detroit.
Look, this might be as bad as the Lions blowing out the Titans the other week. I'm not sure what Trevor Lawrence's injury status is, but it doesn't matter. I'm taking the Detroit Lions. Should be a blowout. Jacksonville's season is scratched. There's no shot they make playoffs at this point. This will just be the coffin, the nail in the coffin for the Jacksonville Jaguars in their season. So yeah, easily Detroit here.
I'm taking the Lions. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Detroit wins this game. It's in Detroit. There's a potential Mac Jones could be playing this game. I don't know. Mac Jones could be playing. Trevor Lawrence could be playing. Whoever it is, it's not going to be that good. So, yeah, Jacksonville's 2-8. They've been struggling already. Detroit is going to easily win this game. They may pull if this game gets ugly, Detroit may pull starters earlier. Keep that in mind for fantasy users. But yeah, Detroit all the way. Up next, we have Minnesota at Tennessee.
Okay, this is an interesting one because Minnesota has not looked good the last couple weeks. Um, you know, their defense is still playing pretty good, but their offense can't get anything done. I mean, Jefferson probably had the worst game of the season last week against all teams. Who they play? Am I tripping?
They played Jacksonville last week.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They played Jacksonville, who has been really bad this year. Their defense did their thing, but I mean, they only put up 12 points on the Jaguars, no touchdowns. That's crazy. Um, you know, and Aaron Jones is hurt. I'm not sure what his status is for this game, but I'm gonna have to go with the Titans here. I think this Minnesota offense is gonna struggle against the Titans defense, who is really good. Um, you know, they're kind of overshadowed by their bad offense, but I think it's going to be a very defensive game, and I give the edge to the Titans defense, and I think they're going to find a way to win this game. Maybe a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown will kind of boost them here, but if the offense can kind of get one or two touchdowns, I think this game could easily sway in the Titans' favor.
I'm taking the Vikings. I think it's going to be one of those gritty games like last week, but I don't know. Will Levis had good, clean football this week. I don't know if he's consistent enough to have good, clean football. Oh, never mind. He had a fumble. Actually, no, he didn't even lose it. So he didn't turn the ball over last week. I'm afraid, though, he turns the ball over this week at least once. Will Levis, he's not consistent enough to not turn it over. And yeah, I mean, the Vikings, they haven't looked as good as they have at the beginning of the season, but I still think they're in still must win situations to where if they want a playoff spot, they're going to need to win the majority of their games here on out. So if they can put pressure on Will Levis and, create turnovers, I think that's going to be the difference in this game. Sam Darnold needs to not, overcomplicate things. Turn the ball over is going to be very bad against this Titans team. Their defense is good, one of the best pass defenses as well, I think. So, as long as the Vikings play just good complementary football, they do what they need to do. Like, it's almost essentially what they did against the Jaguars, even though that game was very ugly. They just, go ahead. In fact, they won that game only on field goals. So, if they score a touchdown, I think they're going to win this game. But this is going to be a gritty game. It wouldn't shock me, though, if this was an upset. Up next, we have Las Vegas at Miami.
I'm gonna have to go with the Miami Dolphins. This is a great matchup for Miami. Their defense is playing pretty good. The Raiders have one of the worst offenses in the NFL, if not the worst. This is a perfect matchup for Miami. They're still kind of in that playoff hunt. They might be 3-6, but they have a shot, especially with the win against the Raiders, sitting at 4-6. They're probably like a game or two out of the wild card if they win. So, I like Miami here. I They looked pretty good against the Rams. They were able to beat the Rams. So that's a good sign for Miami. I like them down the stretch to keep improving, and they gotta find a way to get their receivers more involved. Tyreek and Waddle have just not been involved enough for my liking in the offense. So their defense has really been winning them these games recently, and if the offense can come out and compete, then this game will easily go in Miami's way.
I'm taking the Dolphins. Like you said, the Raiders have the worst offense in the NFL. The Dolphins have a solid defense, probably in the top, 10 defense. And the Raiders don't have the greatest defense either. So I'm not expecting a blowout, but I'm expecting a big game from Devon A-Chain, I think he gets back on track. I also think Tyreek Hill gets back on track. Tua, if you throw an interception, don't try to tackle them, please. But I think the Dolphins are going to win this game pretty easily. I'm not going to lie. Even though the Raiders are coming off a bye week, but I mean, there's so many issues wrong with that Raiders team. It's just not going to be looking good for them. Up next, we have the Los Angeles Rams at New England.
I'm gonna have to go with the Los Angeles Rams. New England didn't look terrible against the Bears last week, but the Rams offense is 10 times better than the Bears offense at the moment. And that's why I'm going to take the Rams in this matchup. I think it's a bounce back week for the Rams. They're still thirsty for that playoff spot. They're only let's see, the Cardinals are 6-4 going into a bye week. So pending this win, they're only like a game and a half out of the first place spot in the NFC West. They need this win to stay in the hunt, and I think they'll get the job done against the Patriots. If they can force a Drake May turnover, that's how they're going to win this game. It's going to come down to their defense being able to show up.
I am taking the Patriots. I think, the Rams offense is just so inconsistent. I mean, granted, they are playing, you could say, better defense, worse defense, whatever it may be. But I mean, like, you have games where they're just having a lot of yards, scoring a lot of points, and then the next week they'll struggle. So it's going to come down to, I guess, which Rams offense we see. Do we see a struggling Rams offense? Or do we see an offense that is, explosive? And the Patriots can very well win this game if they keep it close. I think Drake May can win a game if it's close. So, it's gonna be something to see. They're only giving up an average of 22 points against, which is tied for 13th best. So as long as this game is close, like if the Rams come with a struggling offense, we could be on upset alert again. I am taking New England. Up next, we have Cleveland at New Orleans.
Man, this is an interesting game. New Orleans won surprisingly last week. I don't think anyone thought they were gonna win that game last week, but they did. I think we can chalk it up to divisional game. Those divisional games are always close. So for that reason, I'm gonna take the Browns this week. They had a bye last week. Coming off the bye, looking healthy. Jameis Winston is gonna lead this team against the Saints, who have been subpar on offense and just all right on defense. So I think the Browns can take care of business here in New Orleans. Cedric Tillman has kind of emerged for this Browns team, and he's been a good receiver the last couple of weeks. So I like to see him get involved, see Jerry Jeudy get involved. I imagine Nick Chubb gets a bump in a workload against the Saints this week. So we might see like 85 to 90% Nick Chubb back in the league, which will be exciting to watch. Yeah, and I just like this Browns offense. I think they're going to be able to compete in this game. So I'm going to take the Browns here.
I'm taking the Cleveland Browns. I think they're coming off a bye week, like you said. I think Jameis is going to get his magic back, and the Saints. I mean, granted, they didn't have Derek Carr for a couple of games, but I mean, you essentially just split two divisional games. You beat the Falcons, you lose to the Panthers, but I kind of think this win is a little bit of a fluke. I'm not gonna lie. That defense played extremely stellar. The Falcons just didn't capitalize. They missed 3 field goals. They should have won that game first off. They had over 450 yards of offense, over 100 yards on the ground. like the Falcons only lost that game because Young Hoku could not hit a field goal to save his life, and I don't think that happens against Cleveland. I think they're going to be, they may not be a better team than the Falcons, but I think they're going to play more well-rounded than the Falcons did last week, and they are going to come out in New Orleans, win this game. I mean, yeah, they're just going to have to lock up Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't think anyone saw him having over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Otherwise, you get rid of that. Your leading receiver is Alvin Kamara. So it's Alvin Kamara this, it's Alvin Kamara that. You lock up Alvin Kamara, you're probably going to win the game. I'm taking the Browns. Up next is probably the biggest game of the week. May not be the most good, but it's the biggest game of the week. Baltimore at Pittsburgh.
Wow. Yeah, this will be a huge matchup here. I'm gonna go with the Pittsburgh Steelers on this one. The Ravens have not looked good in their divisional games. And their defense, like you said, has not looked good. So I think this comes down to one thing. The Steelers defense is very good. Ravens defense not so much. I think the Steelers offense will be able to take advantage of the Ravens defense more than the Ravens offense will be able to take advantage of the Steelers defense. So this will be a gritty game. Russell Wilson, he needs to continue doing his thing. I think he will this week against the Baltimore Ravens. So I like Pittsburgh here. It'll be close. Might be like last week what we saw against the Commanders, but I think it's gonna be a similar outcome, with the Steelers taking it home late in the game.
I'm taking Pittsburgh as well. I think they split this series. Pittsburgh's going to win this game at Pittsburgh, and then Baltimore will win at Baltimore. But, yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is better. And then, obviously, the Ravens defense hasn't looked good. The Ravens offense has looked great. But I think the Steelers defense is really good. Washington did score 27 points, but they had less than 250 yards, Washington. So, Pittsburgh, they need to force a turnover on Lamar Jackson, probably through an INT. And they're just going to need to capitalize, on running the football. George Pickens is going to need to have a monster game, especially with these deep ball shots. And I think Russell Wilson, he didn't have the greatest game last week. Only completed 50% of his passes for under 200 yards. But he did have 3 touchdowns. So, that being said, if Russell Wilson can just replicate even what he did this week, it's going to be very good. Also, Mike Williams had a touchdown last week against the Commanders. It was his only target, but seems to already be liking Pittsburgh a lot more than the New York Jets. Just a little side note there, but I'm taking the Steelers this game because it's in Pittsburgh as well.
Add one thing as well. The only reason I think the Commanders were so close in that game is the Pittsburgh special teams. Pittsburgh tried, I don't know if you watched the game, but I believe inside their own 20-yard line, they had a fake punt that did not go their way.
I saw that, yes.
So, they basically gave them a free touchdown there. So if you think about it, this is probably like a 28-20 game, and Pittsburgh has a bigger lead than it looks like on the scoreboard. So I think Pittsburgh's defense really is not to blame for the 27 points, in my opinion. So just putting that out there.
Up next, we have Indianapolis at the New York Jets. And I want to say Joe Flacco is starting this game again.
Yeah, I believe Joe Flacco is the starter until further notice. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the New York Jets. They had a rough game against Arizona, but I kind of called it. I like Arizona this year. They're kind of a sleeper team. The defense really couldn't keep up with Arizona, but with Joe Flacco at the helm, I think the Jets defense will be able to keep up. And the Jets offense should have a good week. The Colts defense is decent. It's not top of the league, but it's decent. I think the matchup though is pretty good. They don't have guys who can cover Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams combined, so I like the Jets this week. And the Jets are trying to go all out for a playoff spot here. If they want to really convert and get a playoff spot this season, they need to win this game. If they drop to 3-8, I think their season is done for. So they definitely need this win, and I think they're going to be more thirsty for this win than the Colts are. The Colts, they don't have an identity right now. They don't know if their young rookie QB who decided he was too tired to play the rest of the game is their QB of the future. And so they're going with 40-year-old Flacco, whose magic seemed to have worn out from last year in Cleveland. So this Colts team is just struggling to find their identity on offense. So I like the Jets this week.
I am taking the New York Jets. I think this game against Buffalo, the Colts were in it a little closer just for the fact that, Josh Allen had 2 interceptions. Joe Flacco had 3 interceptions of that game. So, from a fantasy perspective, if you have the Jets defense, I feel like it's kind of a 50-50 on starting them this week. But from a game perspective, Jonathan Taylor had a big game, so the Jets need to contain him. But the turnovers just hurt the Colts. The Bills also had a defensive touchdown. The first touchdown of the game, in fact, was a defensive touchdown. So, yeah, they just need to force turnovers on this Colts team. That's going to be the key to winning. Otherwise, this game will probably be closer than it is unless Garrett Wilson has an absolute monster of a game. So I'm taking the Jets, but this game can go one of 2 ways. This game can be super turnover filled, or this game's going to be very, very close for some reason. Up next, we have Atlanta at Denver.
Man, Denver is such a fun team. I gotta take the Denver Broncos here. Um, like you said, Atlanta didn't look too bad last week, but this Broncos defense is way better than the Saints defense. I think they're gonna struggle. Kirk Cousins is gonna throw 2 picks in this game. They're playing in Denver, so just another disadvantage for them. The Colts, or not the Colts, the Broncos, they got a little bit of the run game going last week, which was fun to see. And, Cortland Sutton has been balling out as of late. They finally got him involved, and Bo Nixon, Cortland Sutton, finally got that connection going. So, their offense is it's ramping up, and their defense, like I said, probably top 5 in the league right now, in my opinion. So they definitely have the formula to win this game. Falcons, on the other hand, they're not a bad team, but it's so hard to judge the Falcons. Like, some of these games that they lose, they should not be losing. Very close games that they're just not able to execute. So I think it's going to be the same case here. They're not going to be able to execute this close game in Denver, and I like the Denver Broncos here.
I agree. I am taking the Denver Broncos. The Broncos defense they're giving up the 5th least amount of points per game, right? Just over 7 or just under 18 points, I should say. The Falcons, like you said, have been hit or miss. And then Pat Surtain, I'm going to assume he's going to shadow Drake London this whole entire game. So Darnell Mooney, who has been stepping up, I will say, Darnell Mooney has been stepping up. He's going to need another big game. Kyle Pitts is going to need another big game. Actually, not even stepping up. It'll be curious to see who Surtain ends up covering. If it's going to be Darnell Mooney or if it's going to be Drake London. If he covers Drake London, I feel like that's almost better for Atlanta. I feel like Darnell Mooney is a little bit more of a X-factor, explosive player than Drake London. So it'll be interesting to see that. But I think this Denver defense is just going to be a little good. I think Kirk Cousins, with his limited mobility, is going to make a few mistakes, and then, it's going to be up to Bijan. Maybe can you Bijan or Robinson do good on the ground? We'll have to see. This matchup so far, a lot of people, or it's leaning towards Atlanta, but it's also early in the week. But I think Denver's going to win this. It's in Denver as well. Like you said, Bo Nix doesn't need to do anything special. The defense just needs to kind of carry a little bit, and Bo Nix just needs to do enough in order to win this game. Up next, we have Seattle at San Francisco.
I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers here. They've looked good as of late. They're kind of figuring it out with they got CMC back, so I think that automatically just boosts their offense heavily. He's just another threat that defenses have to worry about. And I don't know. Do you know if DK is going to be healthy for this game? Do you know?
I do not know what DK's status is.
Okay,
It
well,
says he's expected to practice Wednesday, but he's still questionable.
okay, so either way, I think the the Seahawks are going to have a hard time executing on offense against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, they got off to a slow start, but they're kind of figuring it out now. You know, they've looked good all around. Purdy has been balling this year. It's been really good, even in the absence of his top playmakers. And now that some of them are back, they're gonna run over the Seattle defense, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with the San Francisco 49ers here.
I am taking the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle is coming off a bye week, but they are, they've made some changes in the linebacker position. We'll have to see how that fares. CMC back as well definitely helps the San Francisco team as well. And yeah, Debo seems to play good against Seattle. George Kittle plays good against Seattle. I don't know. Like the last time these two teams played, Seattle lost by 12 points. San Francisco scored 36 points. I think we might see something similar, especially if Geno Smith doesn't have the greatest game, which, it's kind of been hit or miss for Geno Smith on, how his games have been recently. So we'll have to see. And turnovers is going to be a big one as well. Can they go ahead? If Seattle turns the ball over, the Niners are going to win this easily. If not, then, it may be closer. But Geno also had 2 picks against San Francisco last time they played. So I think San Francisco is going to win this. This defense is good enough to create turnovers. They may not have DK. They may have DK. That's to be determined, but I don't know if that helps anyway. And the Niners get CMC back. So I'm taking Seattle. All right, this might be the game of the week. And as Jim Nance would say, I'm sorry, not Jim Nance, as Tony Romo would say, that's a little Mahomey. The Kansas City Chiefs at Buffalo.
This will be a good matchup. Probably the top 2 teams from the AFC as of right now. But I'm gonna go with the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, look, as much as people hate them, that they can't find a way to lose. I mean, they got the refs going for them. They got the special teams going for them. They got the film studies going for them. They got everything going their way. They're gonna find a way to win in Buffalo. And maybe, Mahomes, we haven't seen him do anything this year, but maybe this is where he turns it around. Um, I don't think the Bills are lacking that number one playmaker that they had in Stephon Diggs. Mari Cooper was inactive last week. I'm not sure what his status is for this week. Maybe he'll play. But either way, I don't think it's gonna be enough to beat the Chiefs through the air. And on the ground, the Chiefs have been good all year. So James Cook, if they can't get James Cook going, I mean this game will be a wash. Um, I like the Chiefs defense to win this game for them. If Mahomes can just put together a few touchdown drives like he's been doing all year, it'll be the same result as every other game this year for the Chiefs. So I'm gonna rock with the Kansas City Chiefs this week.
I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs as well. Although the last time they did win, actually, I'm trying to find this. The last time the Chiefs beat the Bills in the regular season was back in 2022. Hey, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see the Bills win. I think even though it's in Buffalo, I think the Chiefs are just going to grit this game out. They're going to get this win. But look, if the Bills lose or if the Bills win this game and these two teams meet in the playoffs, I 100% believe the Chiefs are going to win that game. Because whatever it is, Patrick Mahomes against Josh Allen in the playoffs, Mahomes just always seems to play better. But we're not to the playoffs yet. This is a regular season. This is going to be a good game. It's going to be a great game, in fact. It's going to come down to kicking some field goals, I think, and turnovers. Josh Allen, he's turned the ball over in back-to-back games, I think. He's thrown interceptions. So this Chiefs defense is good. Can they go ahead and win this game? The Bills, that's going to be a question mark. The two games where he has thrown interceptions, Josh Allen, they've only won by a total of 13 points. So we'll have to see. I think this Chiefs defense is a little better, though, especially if they don't have Amari Cooper, and they're not going to have Keon Coleman. So they're going to need some other playmakers to step up. I really don't like this game for the Bills if Amari Cooper doesn't play as well. So I am going to take the Chiefs. Sunday Night Football, we have Cincinnati at the Los Angeles Chargers.
This should be a good matchup. This might be the second best game of the week. Chargers have been cooking. Cincinnati, not so much. But I like Cincinnati here. I think they're going to be able to get it done through the air. Chargers defense isn't anything special. Um, I, I mean, Jamar Chase just had a legacy week, so I think he's going to be able to get it done against the Chargers again. You know, they're playing in SoFi, so basically home field advantage for the Bengals. Um, yeah, I, I don't see a world where the Chargers win this, to be honest. You know, it's going to come down to which offense scores the most points. And if you compare the two offenses, I like Cincinnati's a lot better than Los Angeles, so I'm going to go with Cincinnati here.
You know what is crazy? The Los Angeles Chargers are giving up an average of 13.1 points per game, which
Uh-huh.
is insane. They've only given up over 20 points in one game, and that was to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going to take the Bengals. I think this offense is it's rolling. They lost that close game against Baltimore, division game in Baltimore, very close game. Jamar Chase had an insane game. I think they're going to come out a little angry in this game. They're going to want it more than the Chargers, and they're going to need this game if they want to get into a wild card spot. Because if we look at the wild card standings right now, the playoff standings, where are they? Right now, if we're looking at them, I mean, how many teams get in? 7 teams get in, right?
Yeah.
7 teams. Look, there's 3 teams. There's 2 teams ahead of Cincinnati. It's Indianapolis and Denver, and right in front of Denver is the Chargers. So Cincinnati needs to win this game first off, to keep their playoff hopes alive. Second off, if they win this game and it comes down to a tie by record, the Bengals are going to have the edge over the Chargers, I want to say, because of that head-to-head matchup. So this is a big game for Cincinnati for their playoff hopes and for a potential tiebreaker. And they're coming out angry after losing that game in Baltimore. So I'm taking the Bengals. Although I am surprised with how little points the Chargers have been giving up this season. They're kind of flying under the radar a little bit this entire season. Monday Night Football. This isn't really a battle of Texas because this is going to be a one-sided game. The Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, if Dak was here, it would still be the same story. It doesn't matter, actually. Never mind. The Houston Texans are going to win this game. Nico Collins should be back this week. He was activated from IR last week but didn't play. I think he'll be healthy enough to play this week. He's probably going to play this week. So we'll see a more full version of this Texans offense. And look, if I'm a Texan right now, I'm pissed that we didn't win against Detroit. So, they're going to be angry, like he's kind of said about Cincinnati. Kind of the same situation here. They're going to be angry. They want this win bad, and they're going to get this win against the Cooper Rush Dallas Cowboys.
I'm taking the Houston Texans. Look, they didn't get any sacks last week against the Lions, but they did force 5 interceptions. And I'm with you. They're not happy. They should have won that game. They should have won that game. They didn't score any second points in the second. They didn't score any points in the second half of that game. Look, Kaimi Fairbairn as well missed a field goal. So, potentially the Texans could have won that game in regular time instead of losing it at the buzzer. Maybe that game would have went into overtime if you had made that field goal. But we're not looking at that. Houston, they're getting Nico Collins back, I'm pretty sure, this week. That's going to help this team out a whole lot. And this Cowboys team is just so bad. It's so depleted. I mean, look, they may not get 8, 10, they may not get 5 interceptions, this Houston team, but they might just get a lot of sacks on this team. Obviously, that run game isn't good. And you have a backup quarterback who struggled against the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is going to be pretty one-sided. Micah Parsons is back, but he can't be the whole defense. So I'm taking the Houston Texans. Those are Week 11 predictions. Who do you have for your auto lock? Yeah, who do you have for your auto lock pick? You forgot to do those past couple of weeks.
Okay, my auto lock this week is going to be Miami against Las Vegas. Miami. I think Miami's back. I think the Raiders are not back. I think they're a top 5 pick in the draft this year, so I'm gonna have to go. It's not the most obvious auto lock, but I think it's still pretty solid. I'm gonna go with Miami here.
I'm going to go with the most obvious one. It's Detroit over Jacksonville. I don't think there's a lot that needs to be said. We discussed it already. Detroit's going to win this game fairly easily, and they may be resting their starters in the 4th quarter. Moving on to fantasy football. GG's last week. Jared Goff and Tyrone Tracy combined for me to lose 12 points. I'm not saying I would have won because I still would have been down by 3 points if I had those 12 points back, but there would have been a potential for me to win. Also, the Chicago defense kind of sold me as well.
Yeah, it was a pretty close matchup. Devontae Smith with only 3.4 points almost sold me, but figured it out. I think I started the most busted roster in the whole league, having Devontae Smith, Cortland Sutton, in my wide receiver 1 and 2, and then Bucky Irving in my flex, who had a great game. Thank you, Bucky. I think he kind of won me that week, to be honest. He had the most points out of all my running backs, including Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor, which is kind of crazy. So, you know, uh, Bucky Irving's the GOAT. That's all I got to say about our matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff told me, like I said, should have had, you add those 10 points back from picks, he's got at least 17 points. I wouldn't say the fumble would have won me this matchup, but 5 picks not winning me this matchup. Also, I feel like the Chicago defense let me down a little bit. They only had 3 points this game, so, not the greatest showing as well. But everyone else kind of did on par a little bit. Kyler Murray, I'm not going to lie, I think he stole a touchdown or 2 away from James Conner as well. But James Conner with his receiving definitely carried me with those points that week. But moving on to next week, I have both my starting running backs on bye weeks and Kate Otten on a bye week as well. So, that being said, I am trying to claim this Audric Esteem off of waivers this week. According to ESPN, he is RB1 on that Broncos depth chart. I don't know if he will be RB1 to start this game this season or to start the game next week. So I'll have to pay very close attention to that. What I'm going to have to do, though, is I'm going to have to start ETN against Denver. Probably not the best matchup, but I'm going to have to. And then I'm just going to, if I end up getting this, if I end up getting Esteem, I'm going to have to keep track of that very, very closely to see if he starts, I'll put him in. If not, it might be a 50-50 ball. I might have to start Tajay Spears. So I'm kind of down right now on players. I'm not going to lie. But I'm also going to try to pick up the Texans defense against the Cowboys. I don't know if I'll play them. For some reason, if I don't get the Texans defense, I might try to snag the Packers defense against Chicago. That might be a good one as well. Or I might go with the Jets. I got to decide on what defense I'm going to use, but this week I got a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah, I only have one waiver this week. I'm looking to pick up the Miami defense. I might not get them. I'm at the bottom of the waiver order. There's not that many good waivers when you're 11 weeks into the season, but I hope I get the Miami defense. Like I said, they're my auto lock for the week, so I think they'll be able to produce against the Raiders. I currently have the Eagles defense, which they're not gonna have the same production they had last week. So, looking at my team, I have 4 players on bye, including Trey McBride, Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, and Wan'Dale Robinson. So, some pretty big pieces in my lineup who are on bye. I'm hoping I get DK Metcalf back this week so I can put him in my lineup. My receivers are currently Devontae Smith, Courtland Sutton, and Cedric Tillman. So I'm really hoping to get DK back. That would be a huge boost to my team. Let's see. Other things. My kicker, Austin Siebert, injured last week. Hoping to get him back too. Was the number 1 ranked kicker going into last week, but had to sit out because of his injury. Picked up the Bears kicker, who the Bears only scored 3 points, so I got 3 points for that. So matchup wise, I have a pretty tough matchup this week. I'm projected to win by 2 points as of right now, but my opponent still has his defense and kicker in, who are both on buys, so he'll probably change those out, and I'm probably gonna be projected to lose. So it'll be a pretty close one for me this week. But overall, not a terrible matchup for me. I just hope my players produce.
I'm, as of right now, projected to lose by 50 points, but I have 3 people I haven't put in yet. And the only person like for projected points that he could physically switch in if he plays would be Amari Cooper. He'd probably put Amari Cooper in his flex or something, or maybe his wide receiver over Jalen Tolbert. So I don't know. I know for a fact that I have to start Tucker Kraft this week. I will not be starting DJ Moore again for the second week in a row. He did very bad against Green Bay last year. I think it's going to be the same thing. I like my wide receivers, though, this week. It's just going to be we'll just have to see, if Amari Cooper plays, like I said, and who Surtain shadows against Atlanta. I'm a little worried about my running backs. I'm going to have to put ETN in, like I said. He's playing Detroit. Detroit's got a really good run defense, and there's a good chance they're going to be passing a lot of this game as well. And then we'll have to see if I get this waiver wire for Denver, Esteem. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe I do. We'll have to see. I may put him in. I'm going to have to keep track of that, though. And I think I'm going to put in start Jordan Love this week over Jared Goff. Even though Jared Goff is playing Jacksonville, I have a feeling Jared Goff, he's not going to throw a super amount of yards because they're going to get up so much in this game. And he may not even play the fourth quarter. So, plus Jordan Love has been really good against the Bears recently. So that is that. And if I get any of these defenses, I'm really contemplating, whether I should start this Jets defense this week or not against Indianapolis. I feel like I might regret it if I don't start them. But then again, if I do start them, I'm going to, regret it because they're going to have like negative 400 points somehow. And if I don't start them, they're going to have like 2 defensive touchdowns. So I really don't know what to do about my defense. So we're going to wait and see on that. Do you have a fun question for this week or not?
Not really, to be honest. So, you can go first.
Hey, that is all good. Being that you don't have one and I don't have one, I figure we do something fun. There we go. Let's do an immaculate grid this week instead of
Let's go.
Fun question.
I'm so down.
Oops, I just closed the wrong thing. There we go. Okay, let's try to get this. So pick a category. Let's start, or we can just start with Raiders Bengals.
Okay, I have a question. Is 3,000 plus yards passing, is that in a season or is that cumulative?
It is in a season.
Okay.
3,000 passing yards plus season.
Okay.
I'm trying to think here. I know one. Wait. Never mind, because I don't. Ooh, wait. I have an idea for Jets Jacksonville, although I'm not sure if he actually
you could
played.
Do Jets Jacksonville, James Robinson.
James Robinson, we'll do that. I was thinking of Tim Tebow, but I don't know if he actually played a game with the Jaguars that like legitimately counted. Okay, 23%.
Wow, that's pretty higher than I thought.
No, I could be mistaken. Did Eifert play for the Raiders?
Ugh, I don't know.
Man. We may have to go back to that
I don't remember
one.
that.
Ooh, this is probably a high one. So we'll do this. Well, I'm not going to put it in, but if we need to, Raiders. I just forgot who this was, bro. It was a quarterback.
You could do
Raiders.
Gardner Minshew for that one.
That's what I was thinking of. Gardner Minshew. We'll leave that though. See if we can find something a little smaller.
I mean, 3,000 yard passers. You could do. There's a lot of options for those.
Yeah.
We can leave those.
Yeah, a lot for that. Since
Players are the harder ones.
I agree.
You could
Yeah,
do Fitzpatrick for Bengals Jets.
you could probably do that for Bengals Bucks as well,
Yeah, you
or
could do that too.
Bucks Jaguars, or
A lot of options with
wait,
Fitzpatrick if
I
you need
don't
it.
know if this is true. So this one may be a little risky, but Raiders Bengals might be AJ McCarron, although I don't know if he has a stat
Mm.
for one of those teams. I know he
He's
was on
definitely a Bengal.
Cincinnati. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like he went to the Raiders at one point, but I don't remember.
There's got to be another bum who played for the Raiders and Bengals. Like, did Vontaze Burfict or whatever? Did he ever play for the Raiders?
I think
Like late in
so.
his career?
I think so. Do you
You
want
can
me to
try
put
that
it in
one.
Vontez
I have no clue
Perfect?
how to spell his first name.
There we go.
Okay.
27. That was interesting.
How are these so high? I feel
I
like
don't know.
these are like
I feel like we
these
can put
are old
Fitzpatrick for
names.
like almost any of
Yeah.
these.
Um, I mean, we could lock in Minshew for the Raiders
Minshew.
Jags, I guess.
Yeah. 29%. Not the super highest. I think we can knock out some of these passing yard ones as well. I mean, who
Yeah.
do you want to do for the Bucks?
We could go Baker, we could go Brady, we could go Winston. There's a lot of options
You could
here.
go probably Josh Freeman as well. I think he threw for
That's
3,000.
if you did
I
that.
I don't know, bro. Winston definitely did. Let's go Jameis.
All right, I'm down.
23. I'm curious to see what Baker would have been. I feel like Baker or Brady would have been higher.
Yeah, they probably would have. They're more recent.
Jets, I mean, I think Mark Sanchez threw for 3,000 yards.
Probably. You could go back to Joe Namath, probably.
True.
I'm assuming he got 3,000. He's like the best Jets quarterback of all time.
And then for the Raiders, we could do Derek Carr for the Raiders.
Derek Carr, Mike Glennon probably has it.
Let's do Derek Carr.
Yeah, Carr's a fair one.
54. That was pretty high, but that was expected. So I think, so we could, I mean, I think, right, Fitzpatrick played for the Bengals, so we could do Fitzpatrick for any of these three, even
Yeah.
for the passing as well, for the Jets maybe. But I think we do a different player for the Jets for that.
Yeah, I think we got to do a different player.
I think Sanchez is better than Namath. I feel like he threw for 3,000 yards one season.
All right, go for it.
Let's see. There we go.
All right, solid.
24%. So now we just need to figure out process of elimination if we can think of some other players. And then the last one would just be Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Gosh.
Bengals Bucks, dude. That's such a weird one.
Yeah.
I feel like
Was Giovanni Bernard ever on the Jets or am I? No.
I don't think so.
Okay. His name came to mind.
I don't know though. Like I haven't.
Probably not. He feels like. I mean, I really only know him as a Bengal.
I feel like there's a Bucks Jaguars one that's like super just easy, but
Oh
nobody
yeah,
knows.
probably.
Wait. Oh, Leonard Fournette.
Oh, that's an obvious one. There you go.
There we go. This one. Yeah, I was expecting that. It's high. Okay. So then Bucks, Bengals, or Jets, Bengals. Jerome Simpson didn't play for the Jets. Did he?
No idea.
I know he played for Cincinnati.
What team was Conklin on before he went to New York?
Who?
Tyler Conklin, the tight end
I
for
thought he got
the Jets right now.
drafted.
Oh, he was drafted by the
I
Jets?
think so.
Oh. I thought he came over in the off
Yeah.
season.
If he did, I don't know where he came from.
Huh.
We
So we got Fitz, so we gotta find a player for one of these teams and we can
There's
fill in
got to
Fitz
be
for the
someone
last
like
one.
a Tyrod Taylor or a
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Josh
Like
McCown. Did
what about
Josh McCown?
mm,
I know he played for the Jets. Did he play for Cincinnati?
that's a tough one.
Oh. Who's the
Andy
other
Dalton was
guy?
never on those teams, was he?
No.
No.
Who's that other guy that bounced around the league a lot? It wasn't. It was not.
You got Josh Johnson. He's on like half the NFL teams, but I don't think he was ever on the Bengals, so that wouldn't work.
No, it was Fitzpatrick, McCown. There was some other guy that I swear his
You
last name
got
started with an M.
wait, is Carson Palm no, Carson Palmer doesn't work here, right?
I don't. No, he was not a Jet. I don't think he was a Buck either.
McCown, McCarib? No, I'm making that name up. Um, Josh Rosen, no. Um, Gosh, I'm stuck in this backup quarterback trend.
I'm thinking that as well, but I'm trying to think of some other players as well. No, Mike Hilton didn't play for the Jets, did he?
No idea.
Shoot.
TJ Usmanzada, was he ever on the Jets? I think he was a Bengal at one time.
I don't remember. Um, I feel like we need to get this Jets Bengals one
Yeah.
because I feel like we have to put Fitzpatrick almost at Bucks. Who was a kicker? Who kicked for the
You got
Bengals
Zerline on the
outside of
Jets right now.
McPherson? So that was a
Before
random.
McPherson, you had no idea.
No idea.
Trying to think of old Bengals players.
Nick
AJ
Folk.
Green was never there.
Did Nick Folk play for the Bengals? I feel like he didn't.
I don't think he ever was ever on the Bengals. Hmm.
Well,
Was Trey Palmer ever a Bengal?
No, he was drafted. I'm pretty sure by
Yeah, you're
them,
probably right.
by the Bucks. I think I'm gonna put Fitzpatrick for here for the Bengal one.
All right.
36%. So we just need a Jet and a Bengal.
Gosh, how hard can
man.
this be? Running backs, maybe? I'm trying to think of like OG guys. Like,
I am too. It's not Demario Davis. Like, not like the Brickishaw Ferguson. Not someone. Oh man. It's not like Mike Conley or something either. It's just like I feel like we're gonna like get it wrong and it's gonna be the most obvious answer.
was Corey Dillon ever paid or a Jet by chance?
Corey Dillon.
Probably not.
Wait. Oh, I don't know if he was a Bengal. D. Milner. No, he was
No
not in the
idea.
league too. He was in the league for not enough time. Corey Davis.
Huh.
5 years in the
Was he
league.
ever a Bengal?
I don't know. I know he was a Jet.
Oh yeah. What about not Robbie Anderson or Chosen Anderson or whatever?
No, I don't think he was ever in Cincinnati.
Oh, was Corey Davis ever a Bengal? I
Dude.
feel like he wasn't.
I know he went to some other team, but I just don't know which one.
He was in what's it called? Tennessee.
Tennessee.
But I don't know if that's the only other team he went to.
Dude, I could have sworn Mike Hilton was a Bengal, but I don't know if he was a Jet.
Yeah, Mike Hilton was 100% a Bengal. I don't know about the
I know
Jets
he was
one
a
though.
Steeler. Dude, I swear this guy was a
Yeah.
Jet at one point. I don't know. We can risk it for a name, or we can just hit the give up. I feel like we gotta risk it for a name. What name do we want to do?
I'm trying to think. There's gotta be one more. I think the best name we could try is Josh Johnson because he's played for like 12 plus NFL teams at least. So if anyone's gonna be a Bengal and Jet, I think it's gotta be him.
All right, I'm gonna click it then. Oh, let's go,
Yo, let's
bro.
go.
The
No shockers.
the most popular ones was Palmer, Maurice Jones-Drew, Derek Carr, Sanchez, Brady, Fournette, Giovanni Bernard,
Oh, he was a. Oh,
who
okay.
was a Bengal and a Buck,
I thought he
Boomer
was a Jets
Esiason,
Bengal, but clearly not.
Boomer
I
Esiason,
forgot about that guy.
and Mark Brunell. Josh Johnson was 1%, bro.
He-
That is crazy. I want to see
What a
very
poll.
quickly who else played. So Fitzpatrick, obviously. See if there's any names we know. Josh Johnson, he played 1 year. He had 2 games and 7 attempts. That
I
is
feel like
crazy.
I just gotta keep Josh Johnson's career path in the back of my mind
Lorenzo
so I can
Neal.
know.
We're right. CJ Uzama, 2015 to 2021. See if there's any just
Okay.
random players. It's Patrick Johnson, Joe Kelly, bro. Carl Lawson. Oh, I was Tyler Croft.
Oh, that's who I was thinking of when I thought Conklin. I feel like they're like the same
That's who I
name,
was.
bro.
Dude, I knew it was some like white tight end, bro. That's what I was thinking of
Yeah.
Eifert, but it wasn't Eifert. Lorenzo Neal. There's some interesting.
Okay, so Josh Johnson has been on the Bucks, the 49ers, the Browns, the Bengals, the 49ers again, the Bengals again, the Jets, the Colts, the Bills, the Ravens, the Giants, the Texans, Raiders, Redskins, Lions, 49ers again, Jets again, Ravens again, the Broncos, 49ers again, and then Ravens right now. So dude has been all over the league.
Yeah, that is crazy. Bro is the definition of a journeyman.
Yeah.
Dude, that was fun. I'm not gonna lie. So, to the viewers watching, obviously, if you're watching some podcast form, it's probably a little confusing to catch up on. But if you're watching this straight off YouTube or the live streams, it was definitely easier to follow. Now, if at least one of us doesn't have a fun question, we'll probably do an immaculate grid. I feel like that would be very fun. Obviously, because we didn't have a question for either of us. So we'll do that instead of a fun question from now on if neither of us have a fun question. But hey, that is going to wrap up this week's meeting, or this week's episode of Midweek Meetings. Week 11 is on hand. We are getting into, I would say, from week 11 to week 13, we have the final stretches of who's kind of cashed out on the season or who's not going to make it this season, unfortunately, and who is just hoping for that one final playoff push. Maybe a few things fall their way and they're able to squeak into a wild card spot, or maybe a potential division win if like the team starts crumbling down. But that is going to do it for this week's episode. Excited for this week of football, and this is going to be a start of some crazy games, some crazy weeks. We're not too far away from, getting some games on, Thanksgiving games, getting some Saturday games, getting some Wednesday games. Like, we're getting into some weird NFL schedule time starting in the next couple weeks. So it's going to be fun. We'll just have to see how it all plays out. If you guys are watching over on YouTube or in podcast form on YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe to the Midweek Meetings YouTube channel so don't miss out when the next episode is uploaded. And if you're watching it live, or if you're not watching it live, make sure you catch us every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/KnockdownNico or twitch.tv/Pr3ssix. Go follow us there. We do the meetings live every Tuesday. But that is going to be it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. And we'll see you next week once week 11 has concluded.